The lesson that's taught incomplete, this is actually one of my biggest pet peeves, guys, is elbows up. And I hear this all the time from instructors. When you're riding, you're supposed to have your elbows up. That is wrong. So most of our adventure bikes, the stock handlebars are about a 19-degree sweep. They're really made for sitting in the bike, putting your hands down, and having a nice, comfortable position. What that means is that your hands naturally drop down into this street rider's position. So when your elbows go up, if your knuckles are still square to the handlebars, you end up with this huge kink in the wrist. I did an entire video just on wrist position and how to use your hands when riding. But this is what's actually most critical. When they say elbows up, they're coaching what you see when everything's right, but just because they're up doesn't mean it's right. What happens is I want this wrist position here to always be flat. So on the bike, when I'm standing, as I move that hand out and I rotate on my grip, that straightens out that wrist. So anytime I hold those grips, the throttle and the clutch side, basically if you're looking at it like this, it's going to be rotated out. It's the same as if you're holding a screwdriver or you reach out to open a door. It's that same grip that we're using. When you switch that grip, your elbows would naturally come off the body. Here's why it's important. When we ride with our elbows in, when the bike shifts or if you get a movement, it captures your ribs and you have no motion. Also, if you fall down, and I've seen this many times, when riders are down and they fall, they crack their ribs with the elbow. When you're high, your arm opens. When you're low, it comes in. And you don't want any injuries. A lot of the techniques I teach are not just about riding well, it's about riding with less risk. Also, when your elbows come up because of that flat wrist, that means the bike can move left and right, and you have space to do that. You also have space to move forward and back without crowding yourself. That's the reason for having it off the body. But up here, this is ridiculous. There's no reason for it. We just want to kind of be flared. Think about a chicken in hot weather, right? They just kind of raise their wings, get a little airflow down there. We want to do the same thing as riders. Here's the myth or the partial truth that a lot of instructors and a lot of schools teach, and that is that when you're riding off-road, you should be on the balls of your feet. And the theory behind this is that when you're on the balls of your feet, it allows you to flex and it puts that hinge, that ankle behind the foot peg. And one of the advantages of teaching newer riders or new adventure riders to pull their feet up and go balls to the feet is it forces you to pull your toe in. That's going to protect you not only if you're on a trail where you might get caught by a stick or a rock or something like that, but more importantly, if you fall down and your foot is splayed out from the pegs, and I'm riding center foot with the toes out like a lot of riders do on the street, when that toe catches the ground, because crashes happen very, very quickly, you'll end up twisting, you can blow a knee, you can bust an ankle, you can bust a foot, and that's a problem. So going balls of the feet as a new rider and teaching riders to do that helps pull that toe in. That's really the best benefit of practicing that when you're new. You know, if I'm just cruising down a gravel road or dirt road, like we often do, I can sit back on the balls of my feet, I'm bouncing around, and anytime I need to use that brake, I just slide forward and I can use that rear brake, or I can slide forward and I can shift. And I just go back to my balls of the feet and off I go. But as soon as we get into something that's truly technical or threatening, soft sand, mud, technical rock riding, we need to be right on top of that controls where I can reach down and use that brake, or I can shift those gears absolutely instantaneously. I'm just getting a little bit behind those controls. And often what I find is I very often will have my left foot sitting behind the shifter and my right foot will be hovering over the top of it when I'm in technical riding. So I don't accidentally kick my bike in or out of a gear that I want to be in. But when it's time to use that rear brake, it's right there and ready for me. So the missed lesson is we always ride on the balls of our feet. That's how we ride. That's how you ride off-road. The reality is it's much more dynamic than that. Balls of the feet, center of the foot, moving forward and backwards as needed based on that riding environment. When you're taught to squeeze with the knees, that is absolutely dead wrong. Some of the lessons that I'm including in this video have some element of fact and truth to them, and this is one where it's not. The reason that instructors will often tell you to squeeze with the knees is because they don't want you to squeeze with the hands. They don't want you to lock on there. The problem with squeeze with the knees is you end up so immobile and you waste so much energy because you're actively squeezing instead of wedging that you end up with less mobility on the bike, you're less stable, you're more fatigued. Everything that you need is wrong. Here's what we actually want to be doing. When we're on the bike, the way we lock in so that we're not holding on here and we're not squeezing at the knees is to lock at the ankles. We want our feet in nice and tight to the bike. When you're riding in sand and loose surfaces, you need to be able to move very fluid left and right. And by doing this, if I was squeezing here, what happens is I don't end up moving my body. By staying relaxed, it allows me to shift and move around on the bike. So we index, which means my knees are touching the bike, touching the tank, touching the seat, but we're not squeezing them. Now, one of the things you might end up feeling, and I teach this, is rotation. When you rotate in to a new path of travel, you'll feel pressure on the knee. You might feel pressure on this back knee, and it's that rotation that locks you onto the bike, but it's not actually squeezing. It's actually the pivot of the body position that makes that feel pressure, but we're not actively using muscles to engage it. We don't squeeze at the knees, we touch, we index, we lock in at the ankles, and we stay very fluid and very loose on the motorcycle. I'm almost positive I'm going to get comments about how wrong I am on this particular topic. Let's talk about vision. We know vision is important as a rider. We know it's important to be looking ahead, to be planning, but I'm going to tell you now, when you're coached eyes up, it's wrong. Eyes up doesn't tell you anything to do. It doesn't give your eyes a job to do. And there's nothing wrong with looking down, provided that you're looking down for the right reasons at the right places. When you're riding up a terrain feature like this, especially at a low speed, What really matters is where those little wedges are, where I can put my tire, where my traction is. I'm not moving that fast. Your vision is related to speed. If I'm out on the highway and I'm running at 70 miles per hour, then my eyes are going to be a long ways down the road. I'm going to be looking a mile up the road because that's what's happening. That's how fast things are occurring. If I'm in sand and rock and I'm crawling around at 5 or 10 miles per hour, there's nothing wrong with dropping your eyes down to find where you want to be. The problem is, as a newer adventure rider, or often even as experienced riders, we have a tendency to look down and we don't plan. We're not looking up ahead, getting the big picture, and then coming down and picking up the details and going back to the big picture, back down to the details. The other thing is that if you're looking down because you're scared, and here's how you can test yourself. If you're looking down and you see scary things, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. What we want to do is be looking down to find our happy place, the places we want our tire to be, the places where we know traction is, where we can make a smoother path of travel, where we can maintain balance. If you're finding things you want to see when you look down, that means you have a plan and a mission, and then you go back to looking up. If every time you look down you get scared and you can't get your eyes up, that's the problem, and that's when you get coached, get your eyes up. But coaching eyes up is incomplete, it is wrong. You need to be looking where you need information. At high speed, I need it in the distance. At low speeds, I need it up close, but I still have to have a plan where I'm going. That's how you use your vision. Find your happy place. Peg weighting is definitely a coaching point that's given out by a lot of instructors in a lot of schools. I'm not going to say that peg weighting is all wrong all the time, but what it is incomplete. Like so many coaching points that I hear at schools and from instructors, it's coaching an indicator or a result of doing something else. In this case, what peg weighting is, it's about shifting your mass to create instability in the motorcycle to change direction. And then of course we have to regain stability depending on what we want the bike to do. In this case, peg weighting could be pushing left or right. And what happens is that bike will then shift and move because we're moving and we're causing the bike to follow us. The problem with this as a taught technique is that we really want to understand what that is trying to accomplish, the physics of what's going on there. Because I'm trying to create instability, and by doing that to shift my weight, I can do that by counter steering. I could do that by pressing with the opposite knee. If I want to turn to the left, I'm going to use my right knee. If I turn and press that right knee in, it'll cause the bike to shift. If I push down on the left peg, depending on how your bike is set up, who you are as a rider, how you ride, all of the other factors go on, you might be making the bike turn left without ever adding weight to that lower peg. That's my problem with the teaching process and why I'm putting that in this video as one of those things that you were taught that was wrong. We want to create instability using some method, whether it's the pegs, whether it's the knee, whether it's your hands, whether it's our body position, to create that bike some instability for directional change. That's the goal. I do want to officially cut some slack to all those instructors who are giving up their weekends to come out and try to make a difference in people's riding and their lives. Remember, these guys aren't professionally trained educators. They're just riders who are wanting to make a difference, and they deserve recognition for that sacrifice. If you'd like to come train with me and my crew, I do have the 2025 schedule posted for the US. That's Georgia, Virginia, Utah, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. And we'll be traveling around the country doing classes again this year. Also, my international tours are posted. Next year will be Morocco and Nepal. Those courses or those tours are open and ready for registration. If you want to join us, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe, hit the bell so you get notification. And the most important thing, I'm waiting till the last, and that is thank you to all of those that support me on Patreon. You're the ones that make this channel possible. You're the one that keeps the funding so I can afford to do these videos and to help all the riders out there in YouTube land. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. You make the difference. Take care, guys. See you next time.